Ladies and gentlemen, Binnall of America!
And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Tim Binnall.
No commercials, no subscriptions, no network, no rules. And at the end of the day, my friends, no comparison. Welcome to another edition of BOA The Revival. Really looking forward to tonight's show. Our guest is Brooke Moreland. She is the creator and host of the podcast Dark Florida. And she's also a Bigfoot field investigator. And she's really a rising star in the world of the paranormal, especially in the realm of Bigfoot. I started seeing her name like all over the place earlier this year, and she's already doing conventions, and she's going to be on a cruise later this year. So she's, like I said, a big time rising star, not just really in the world of Bigfoot, but the world of paranormal, because Dark Florida covers all kinds of cool stuff. Not some of it, not even in Florida. So we'll get into some of the other stuff that's in there, but she has a lot of interests in different topics and a lot of the stuff that we've covered here on Binnall of America. So I'm looking forward to talking to her. Welcome to the show, Brooke.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So we always start out first time guests, the bio, the background, who is Brooke Moreland and how did you wind up creating Dark Florida?
Absolutely. Well, I'm an avid hiker. I love adventures, and I created Dark Florida because there were so many things I wanted to talk about and just had opinions on and wanted to give people a place to come and share their experiences. I'm intrigued by anything cryptid, paranormal, supernatural, unsolved mysteries, or just strange news in general. I love it. And I have to get to the reason of why. I have such a curious mind that I have to dig into things. So I just wanted to kind of create a space. And I think that's what we're doing over on Dark Florida, is giving people an outlet to come and share their stories while also learning about all the strange and weird stuff that's happening in this world.
Yeah, you cover quite an array of topics and have some interesting guests on there too as well. So you're a field investigator. How often? Because I follow you on the social media, so you're out there in the forests, I guess. I was going to say
Yes.
Swamps, really, like Florida. It's kind of just So tell me about this. You have like an area that you're specifically concentrating on?
I do. I actually have a couple areas. I've quit naming it just because Florida is big, but it's not that big. But I will say I research in Central Florida and Ocala a lot. But I mean, I've been all over Florida investigating, even up into the Panhandle and down in Mayaca towards the Everglades. I'm just trying to cover as much ground as possible. And I've had some really cool stuff happen in those places. But yeah, I get out a few times every month. I'm almost out there pretty much every weekend. And yeah, it's a lot, but I'm always collaborating with other researchers and things like that. So we get out there quite a bit.
Yeah, I see you on there out all the time. I'm like, oh my God. So you found a print relatively recently on one of these expeditions?
I did. So I found some prints. We're actually coming up on a year now, which is crazy to think about. Since I found those footprints, I don't know if that is the one you're referring to, but I found some in one of our research areas. We were out there primitive camping, and we'd been out there for a few days. And this was
that's the one I'm talking about. Yeah, I thought it was like recently. All right, so it was about a year ago. All right, I'm sorry.
Yep, we're coming up on a year, and we were primitive camping out there, and we hadn't seen anybody the entire time that we were out there. And we were coming back from a location that we had done some scouting out in the morning, and we take e-bikes in, so we get in really far and then we get off and hike. And so I'm always like looking at the ground while we're riding just to see any kind of tracks, animal or otherwise. And it's limestone, but there's some sand and some mud. And thankfully, I catch these tracks and I just slam on the brakes, and we have this really just beautiful trackway where I was able to capture a few tracks that led off into nothing, into the woods. And they are footprints, and you can see it clearly in the mud where this thing dug its toes in. You can clearly see it, and literally it walks off into nothing, into nowhere, into really thick, disgusting brush. And here in Florida, you don't go anywhere barefoot, or at least I wouldn't advise it. There's
Right.
bugs and animals and things out there that will kill you with just a bite. So it was really strange that we came across these, but we were able to document them. They were 12.5 inches long by 5 inches wide, and there was a stride length of about 5 feet 6 inches. And I'm 5'9", so I tried to kind of do the splits to mimic this stride length, and I was unable to do so. So that was an incredible find.
Yeah. What is it like when you find something like that maybe Bigfoot was just like recently in the area? Is it kind of creepy?
It is kind of creepy. It's kind of, it's validating, but it's almost wild because we go out there so much, and I don't want to say nothing happens because, believe me, I'm sure we'll get into it tonight. There's been plenty of stuff that has happened, but other days you kind of go out there and the most you'll see is actual wildlife, deer, raccoons, other things. It's kind of benign. And you're like, okay, well, at least we got to go out in nature and see something cool. But when you actually come across like this undeniable proof, whether it be your own Class A, you've seen it, or Class B, you come across the prints, you hear the vocals or something like that. It really is. It's like hitting the lottery. It's amazing. It's a really cool feeling. The creepy feeling, I think, happens for me with some of the vocals. That's kind of weird. And then my Class A sighting I had, that was when I was creeped out. The prints, I think I was just excited. I was just
okay. Well, then what's the what's the Class A? Because that has to be good if it's a Class A. So what is it?
It is.
So, who classed it a Class A?
Me.
Okay.
I classed it. Well,
fair enough.
Well, because so the difference between Class A and Class B, for any listeners that may not know, is Class A means that you put your eyes on it, that you cannot misidentify it with anything else. You saw it and that's a Bigfoot. Class B is you had the footprints, you heard it, found fur, everything but actually seeing it happened. Right.
Okay.
So
you've seen Bigfoot.
Yeah, I did. I had it. I had this sighting. It was really cool. So I was up on a scouting trip in the middle of last November, around Thanksgiving, up in the Panhandle. And because I was going on a BFRO expedition in February, and I was invited to scout out some locations for that expedition. So I'd signed the NDA, everything was set. So I was going on this trip. And we were up there, just like I said, scouting locations. We knew this was an area of high strangeness. Outside of Bigfoot, there's been reports of black-eyed children, multiple skinwalker accounts up there, the crawlers. So there's more than just Bigfoot happening up there, especially in this area that we went. So I can say it's in the Panhandle. And we're at camp, and there was a freeze warning that night. So we had cooked dinner, we'd made some chili, and we're just kind of hanging out around the fire. Well, my one friend, she had gone on a small hike earlier on this trail that was near the campground. Well, it was still hunting season. So while she's on this trail, she's like, crap, I don't have on my orange. Throws her backpack off, grabs out her vest and puts it on. Well, we think that while she did that, she dropped her phone. So of course she realizes that at like 9:00 at night, after the sun goes down, and we're in this freeze warning. So we're like, crap. Okay. And she's like, I really don't feel like it was that far from camp. So if we could just do this little loop trail, I think we'll be able to find it. So we're like, all right.
9 at night in the dark in the woods.
Right. So we're like,
Jesus. I'd be like, you're getting the phone in the morning, dude. You're getting the fucking phone in the morning. I am not going out into the woods at 9 at night. You're crazy. But go on. Yeah, you're braver than I am. Go ahead.
I know. I'm a good friend. So me and my buddy were like, all right, well, we'll go with you to help you find this, because we figure 3 people looking is better than one. And it is nighttime, and we didn't want to.
You don't want to go alone. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So we're out there again. Really, I was not thinking with the intention of Bigfoot. Honestly, my thoughts were, I'm freezing. It's only going to get colder. Oh gosh. Like, I hope I prepared enough, because we knew it was going to be cold. But we were not expecting this like 20 degrees cold, the weather changed from when I was packing for the trip to what actually happened. So that's always a good thing for the audience if you're ever out camping. prepare for extremes because you never know what the weather's going to do. It can change on a dime. And
Okay.
so we're going along and we're on this trail. And like I said, it kind of loops around the campground. And I knew that it had come back up behind these people's camp. And I didn't want to be obnoxious. I wanted to be mindful because it was late at night. If we were coming up behind their camp, like we would try to be respectful, like quieter tones, not be shining flashlights and stuff around everywhere. So we're walking along. My friend Miriam is behind me. This guy, Jeff, is in front of me. And I'm kind of going, I can't say at this point how hard I'm looking because I'm like, oh gosh, like I don't think we're going to find it. And I look up and I see these two lights. So there's the tree and I see these two lights. And I'm like, are we already back at camp? And then they go away. And I was like, okay, that's really weird because now my mind is like, poachers, is somebody out here hunting or what are they doing out here? I'm a really bad guesstimate distance, but they were up ahead on the trail, probably about 8 to 9 feet up the ground, which is why I kind of you.
So I'm trying to. So like
about
you see these sort of lights. Okay.
Exactly, about the 12 o'clock position. And I see these lights and I tell Jeff, I'm like, okay, I just saw this. So he comes back and he's like, where is I just saw these lights up here. And now they're gone. So he's like, well, let's light up this area with our flashlights. Like, come on, let's do it. So we all turn our flashlights on and we're shining it in the woods. And that's when now at about the 9-10 o'clock position, my light hits these eyes. And there are these huge eyes. And all of a sudden they do this like bobbing motion, like up, down, and then they're gone. And in that moment, that is when I had like my blood run cold. And I've never really experienced that. It was like my blood ran cold and truly like every hair in my body stood up. And I was like that almost like freeze moment, that fight, flight, or freeze. And I just froze. That was like the creepiest thing. It was creepy as shit. And so Miriam whips out her therm and she's therming. She's like, do you want to see it? I was like, I've seen enough. No, I don't want to see out the therm. Like I'm already freaked out because it wasn't far. And it went from this 12 o'clock position to now we're at the 9-10. And my buddy Jeff is like, okay, well now it knows that you've seen it. And it's hunkered down. Now it's hunkered down. So I'm like, oh crap.
Jesus.
And
it's watching you. Yeah.
Right.
Ooh. Yeah.
And so we're like, okay. So we decided to go on because we were like, do we turn around or go back? We're like, let's just keep on going forward. So we're going forward, we're like, we don't mean you any harm. We're just trying to find her phone and go back to camp. And we're walking along and then he says that he sees like something like black out of his peripheral kind of paralleling us on the trail. And he was like, it took me a minute to process what I was seeing. And so then again, same kind of thing. We shine the lights and this time we didn't see anything, but we can see like animal trails that are pretty big. A lot of brush has been cleared, so something could be moving through there. And we got back to camp and it was hard to sleep that night. It really was. Because my mind was just trying to figure out and rationalize, like, what did I see? Like I'd been told by random people who didn't even know that we're out there Bigfooters. Like we were going to the bathroom and coming out and one of the ladies was like, oh, you guys going hunting? Because we have on our orange and we're like, sort of, but not for, not for what you think. And when we said Bigfoot, she was like, oh, and then she started sharing her experiences, like I said, with the black-eyed children and these skinwalkers. And I had already heard some skinwalker stories from other people. So I get back to camp and I'm just trying to like rationalize what I've just seen. And that really changed things for me. It was really crazy because I didn't know what to make of it. I had seen these like self-illuminating eyes and I don't know. It just really shook my paradigm.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, absolutely. Now what is primitive camping? You said you were primitive camping and a different thing. It's not necessarily of this experience, but you mentioned it earlier, primitive camping, and I made a note of it. So what is that?
Primitive camping is basically bare bones. So there's no electricity, there's no water. There's typically just a spot with maybe a fire ring. And that is primitive camping.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. So you have dispersed camping, which I think is just like in your car. I think is dispersed camping. You have primitive camping, and then you kind of have nice camping where you have facilities and a place to shower and go to the bathroom. But primitive, you don't have any of that.
Just out in the woods. All right.
Just you in the woods. Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll circle back to this later because I'm doing a Bigfoot hunt in the North Georgia woods in the fall. So maybe you can have some tips because we don't know what the hell we're doing. So
totally.
So I thought it was interesting. I saw an interview with you. You spoke at the Great Florida Bigfoot Conference, and I saw an interview with you. Someone did, and I apologize to the person who did the interview. It's on YouTube. But he asked you, Bigfoot, animal or supernatural? And you answered supernatural, like without even any hesitation, without any. And I was like, wow, I was really surprised that you just so quickly you were like supernatural. I was like, wow. So most people kind of equivocate and kind of dance around. Well, then you were just like supernatural. So what makes you so sure that it's supernatural?
Well, that's the thing is I wouldn't say I'm so sure. That's definitely the theory that I gravitate to the most. I think we all have our favorite theory. Once you get into Bigfoot, right. There's a lot of different camps that's what people don't realize is that you think once you find people who are Bigfooters, you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. Until you realize there's so many subcultures and communities within it. And then certain ones are like, oh, you believe it's supernatural. Well, we don't like you because we think it's an ape. So where I stand is like, personally, that's my favorite theory. But I've always said that if there is data or something else that comes out otherwise, I'd like to think I'm open-minded enough that I can change my opinion when presented with facts that go against what I already think. But just some of the work of researchers like Dave Paulides and Scott Carpenter and some of these OG greats who have really paved the way for people like myself to come along and carry on that work. I think that there is a supernatural element to it. I think in the sense, like, I love how some people are like, oh, I don't do the paranormal and this and that, but I just feel like there really is an overlap. I think that we're dealing with something that has some supernatural properties to it. I mean, all of a sudden it can be there and then it can be gone. Prints that lead to nothing and disappear and just strange things that sometimes happen. Some of these metaphysical anomalies that happen when out looking for Bigfoot. Like I've seen strange lights and we've heard these howls and just these really odd things that to me it makes it feel like it's more than just a wood ape out there banging on trees.
Yeah. I'm kind of more in the supernatural camp myself. Are you familiar with the work of Cutchin and Renner, Where the Footprints End? They did a whole book, book set on the paranormal Bigfoot. So you should check that out if you get a chance.
Where the Footprints End.
Yeah. Very, very paranormal Bigfoot. So interesting. Yeah. Well, it's I kind of. I'd almost prefer it to be a flesh and blood creature just because it'd be easier to deal with. But at the same time, it's like it's been so long that something tells me maybe that it is more supernatural than natural, if you will, because somehow it manages to evade. We would have had it by now or something,
Right.
So, but it's
and some of the things that people are experiencing are just really strange. Like I've had guests come on my show and people talk to me about mind speak, the infrasound, getting zapped, and then some of the orbs and weird energy anomalies that are happening while they're in these places of that high strangeness, that it's not just this just benign creature. There seems to be like more things to it that you just can't ignore.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I was you had Maxim Furyk on your show, and I actually talked to him a few weeks ago too, and or earlier this month, and he put it in my head. I don't remember how exactly, but it was like, all right, when I go on this Bigfoot hunt, I should start meditating now and try to like see if I can connect with the Bigfoot that way. Have you ever tried anything crazy like that?
Meditating, no, but I've definitely started to put out like intentions and good energy to just say like, hey, we're here to observe you. We're not here to hunt you or to harm you. We're just here to learn from you. I've seen some other people do that to just kind of set some intentions when you go out there and let them know why you're there, because there are some people who do want to kill a Bigfoot to bring it in for scientific purposes and things like that. So I haven't tried any meditation, but maybe I should.
It was just a crazy thought that I had, so I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'll let you know if it works.
Please do.
So let's talk about some of the topics you cover on Dark Florida. So Coral Castle, that's like one of my, I've never been, but it's sort of a bucket list place for me. And that was one of the first shows you did. So I take it you've been down to Coral Castle and checked it out and seen it in all its glory, if you will.
I have.
So tell me a little bit about it, I guess. Tell me your take on it, is probably the best way to put it. And for people who don't know, give us a little bit. You don't have to do the whole story, but, give us the thumbnail on what is Coral Castle.
So Coral Castle is a place in South Florida that was built by this guy named Edley Scownon, and he was a really sick and feeble, old man. I don't even think he was taller than 5 foot. He was a Latvian immigrant, and he worked under a lot of secrecy. He would only work at night, and when people would ask him, how did you build this? He said, it's not hard if you know how. And for people who want to know what did he built this giant megalithic marvel. Honestly, he built a giant sun, and it's literally a coral castle because it's all made out of this limestone. He built planets, stars, moons that perfectly align with Orion's belt. There's a lot of stuff there. He built a bath.
It's like a whole complex. Yeah,
it is. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, I forget how many tons, but I mean, it's insane. It's huge. And there's this one piece that was this door that could move with just the touch of a finger. And it was this, I forget, 300 or 3-ton door, and you can move it with just a finger. Well, I guess it finally broke back in the 80s, and using the modern machinery back then, they were never able to restore it back to its original condition. They can never get the door to work in that real flawless motion as it had before. And and there's a lot of things, rumors around him when he went to go pick up certain materials and stuff, that he used this tripod thing that had a black box on top, and that he was able to build all this stuff using electromagnetism by utilizing the ley lines and gravitational technologies by studying the pyramids. He referenced the pyramids a lot, but nobody knows how he built it. And if you look into him, he's a really little, he was probably 100 pounds soaking wet, if that. And he was just this little, really sick guy who built this entire thing by himself.
Yeah, it's a crazy place. It's a really, I've heard a lot about it over the years, and it's definitely someplace I've wanted to check out. It sounds very awe-inspiring.
Yeah, it is. It's a mystery.
Yeah, it certainly is. Now, have you been? Is that in the general area of Robert the Haunted Doll? And have you gone and checked that little guy out?
Oh gosh, no. Robert's down in Key West.
Okay.
I actually was just talking about him last night. I have a friend of mine who thinks that they've been cursed by Robert the Doll because apparently Robert the Doll can curse you if you take pictures without his permission. Take something from the fort that he's shown at, like a rock or a seashell, you can get cursed by him. And basically Robert the Doll is kind of like Annabelle Chucky. He's this possessed doll. And no, I don't think I want to meet Robert. I don't think I want to. After knowing somebody who's been cursed creepy. By him, I don't want to take my chances.
Yeah. We had a guest on earlier in the year. She said her aunt went down there and did the thing, and she thinks her aunt was cursed by.
See?
So
no.
The second curse story I've heard.
His reputation precedes him. I'm good. I can't take the risk.
Now, what are the interesting things? So jump back a little bit off of Weird Florida. Maybe you could speak to this, because I thought this was interesting. And do you remember the Gabby Petito story, and the guy went missing in the I have it written down here. Where is the thing?
Mayaka?
Yeah. He went missing in some huge, vast, I guess they call it an environmental park. I don't know, it's a park. And they were like searching for him and shit. And I was like, oh, I wonder if they'll stumble upon the swamp ape while they're looking. But a lot of the time they were like, oh, it's super flooded. And I was like, I was thinking today about this, thinking about talking to you. It was like, how do you think this creature can even survive down there if it really gets so crazy flooded?
Well, you got to think the skunk ape is probably a lot larger than you or I. So it's got these massive legs that could probably transverse things probably pretty easily. A lot easier than we could. And they probably swim. Yeah. Probably pretty fast, I would think.
Interesting. All right.
I think they swim.
You think they swim? I've never heard that before. I thought apes don't swim. Well,
that's funny. If it's an ape, right? But if it's
right.
a human hybrid. But I mean, we hear a lot of stories about how fishermen will see them kind of standing in water and things like that, like presumably probably looking for fish themselves to eat. I heard a lot of stories about that, like on the Ogallala River, which kind of runs through here. I've heard that with Crystal River. So I would not be surprised if they can swim. Yeah.
Huh. All right. I suppose they didn't find the swamp ape when they're looking for Brian Laundrie because
no, but that case was just really weird. And it's like crazy that the authorities looked for him. They couldn't find him. His parents go out for an hour and they find him. Something just it's like,
oh yeah, the parents
really
yeah. I followed that case
story
really closely. Yeah, the parents definitely knew where he was and didn't. Even when he was dead. I mean, I think that like even then they were like, yeah, we know specifically where he killed himself, but they weren't going to tell.
Well, and that's the thing is that I guess like his dental records were ID'd by his own uncle. So a lot of people are speculating that the parents, that he might still be alive somewhere and the parents helped him get away with it.
I've heard that, but I'm not a huge believer in that. Although it's a really weird case. It's a really strange case.
It is. It is a strange case.
I keep wanting the parents to like do, not her parents, but the evil parents to do an interview where they at least like tell why the fuck they behave that way. But you know, who knows? So yeah. All right. So Cassadaga, this is a town full of psychics, right?
Oh yeah. It's the psychic capital of the world.
Well, tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, Cassadaga is here.
Why are there so many psychics?
That's a great question. This guy named last name Colby. I want to say his name was George P. Colby. I could be messing that up, but I know it's definitely Colby. He founded the town back in like 1812 or something like that. And he founded that town because he was given a vision by this Indian spirit guide that he had named Seneca. And Seneca told him that he was to come down here to Florida all the way from Lilydale, New York, and then he was going to create this place basically for spiritualism to take roots here in Florida. And that was a pretty big deal back in the 1800s. Even Mary Todd Lincoln would host seances and things like that at the White House. She was very into it. And at the time, a lot of people they were dealing with the aftermath of the Civil War and lost loved ones. So when spiritualism came along and they were hosting these seances and trying to get in touch with loved ones, it really took off. So he came down here and he was led here, like I said, by the spirit guide Seneca. And apparently where Cassadaga is, there is also an energy vortex there. So again, it kind of falls on that same ley line that Coral Castle does. Cassadaga falls on one, that there is an energy vortex. And so he founded this spiritualist camp, which was a sister community to the one up in Lilydale, New York. And it just became a home for these psychics. And you can still go there today. They still have seances and you can go and get a reading or attend a class there. They've got, it's really cool. Like the street names are Spiritualist Road. What was the other one? Mediumship Way. And the whole town is still kind of has like the original designed houses. And there's this hotel you can stay out there. That's haunted. It has some paranormal activity in there. Yeah, right. And it has some paranormal activity and then some ghosts. I want to say his name is Albert, who haunts, or is it Alfred? One of the two, who haunts the halls there. So yeah, it's got the world's highest concentrations of psychics per capita.
That's amazing. And whereabouts in the map of Florida is this place?
It's
relatively
really
speaking?
not far from Daytona. So it's like kind of in between Orlando and Daytona. So it's
Okay.
more
Florida's
towards,
so big.
yeah, yeah, it is.
Because I've wanted to see stuff, and it's like, well, it's like, oh, if you want to go see Coral Castle, you can kind of, you're shit out of luck if you want to go up to Casadega, I assume, right? Or else you're going to drive like 5 hours or something like that, which is like super far away.
Maybe 3, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Still. Yeah. Yeah. So it's hard to find a central location to check out all this stuff.
Well, especially when there's so much happening. It really, you have to figure out, like you said, what you're here to see, and then try to plan it off that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just don't. Yeah. Disney. Don't do that. It's too expensive.
No.
Now, one of the cases you covered Dyatlov Pass on your channel. I was really excited about that because that's a really big favorite of mine. So,
Oh yeah.
we've done Dyatlov on the show, so we don't necessarily need to catch people up to speed too much. For those who don't know, it was this group of hikers who died under mysterious circumstances in the Ural Mountains. I want to say 49. I may have gotten the year wrong. And that's pretty much it. That's the story. And it was in Russia, and no one really knows what happened to them. So, what's your take on the case? What fascinates you about the case? What are some of the things that you picked up looking at it that you shared with the Dark Florida listeners?
Well, I think it's just really strange, the fact of the radioactivity being found on the bodies.
Yeah.
A couple of the bodies, so they weren't all found at one time either, which I'm sure you covered as well. So that's a piece that's interesting. And so some of the last bodies that were found like face down in this creek. And so water does purify radioactivity over time with the rushing of it. But they had been out there, I think, for like 21 days or something. And even still after 21 days, this body had, I forget, like 10 times the amount of radioactive activity of somebody who would be working it with radioactivity. It was like off the charts still after all that time. So I feel like that's a fact that really can't or shouldn't be ignored in this situation. I'm really torn. I think that the photograph that they took of the strange being behind the tree is kind of interesting. It's very squatchy. It's one of those blurry photos, and it kind of looks like the typical Patty stride. So I think that that's really crazy. And I mean, what would possess these people in the middle of like sub-degree temperatures to just run outside of their tent, like not even go out through the zipper, but just cut through it and just...
that's probably the most compelling part of the story.
Yeah.
I apologize. I forget the guest's name who we had on the show, but we've come back to this term before. An unknown compelling force, like something caused them to flee the tents in a crazy mad rush. You're a camper, like why would you ever slash the tent? Like you would have to think that you need the tent. Like even no matter what's happening in the moment, like you theoretically you're going to need the tent tomorrow, but it's like in that moment you're like, there is no tomorrow. I have to get the fuck out of this tent immediately.
Right. And then on some of the papers they did find, because they kept this like group journal that each of them would write updates in it throughout their trip. And one of the entries says, "Now we know that snowmen exist." So I think that's really interesting. Like, that's ominous. Why would they write that? What does that mean? But yeah, that's a strange case. That's really strange. But then again, I mean, I also think it could be Russian weapons testing, because as you know, the hikers got off course. They didn't go the course they were supposed to. They didn't set up camp where they were supposed to. They just set up where they were because they had already hiked so far, but before they realized that they were off course. So they were like, okay, well, we're here, we're going to set up. And there were all kinds of gulags and secret stuff happening back in that time with, the arms race, and we have to get to the moon and just all that stuff, that I would not be surprised if they stumbled upon a Soviet weapon test that they weren't meant to see.
It's possible.
Well, they buried the hell out of that case. I mean, they buried it then and they buried it now, and they reopened it. I think, what was it? It was either they reopened it within the last few years, but they said that they would only be looking at they would not be looking at any sort of
Crazy.
theories. Yeah, no. And then they
Yeah.
closed it basically again.
Yeah. I think they reopened it for the 50th anniversary. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, pretty sure it was for the 50th. Yeah, well, there was a recent study that came out like a couple years ago and they actually used somehow the technology from Disney's Frozen. Did you hear about the story? And
No.
they created a model to show how it was a shelf avalanche. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know, but these were like avalanche scientists who looked into the case, and but I mean,
I did hear the avalanche theory, but I guess that doesn't explain the missing eyes and tongue, the radioactivity.
Yeah, there's a lot of
the guy who
details.
bit his own thumb off.
Yeah, there's a lot of strange little details. So it is odd. Especially how like it would kill all of the people. Like, wouldn't someone get out of that situation okay? Or at least, like go several hundred miles, keep trying.
And
to get
just
out
the
of it.
trauma on the bodies was like they said, like that of a car crash. But yet on the outside, I mean, aside from the ones that had like the missing eyes and tongues, there wasn't a lot of physical injuries that would have aligned with what they were presenting on the inside. Like their insides were just beat to shit. And that's such a strange case. I love that one. I feel like, there's so many avenues you could go with that.
Now, have you looked at the Yuba County 5 case?
Yes. That's another weird one. That one's sad. That one's actually
it is very sad.
Really sad.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on it? What do you think might have happened to these guys? Do you have a theory at all you like?
I've seen the one of them definitely being manipulated somehow. I think that they were saying there was one guy on there. I think he had some sort of military background and he wasn't as mentally as impaired as the other ones. I think, what did he have? Like OCD, which at the time.
He had, schizophrenia.
He did?
Matthias. Yeah.
Okay. But he was still like more cognitively with it than some of the other ones who like now today might be like higher on the spectrum. And I think he could have manipulated, because it's just so sad. Like this poor kid is like basically starved to death when there was a food cache right there. That doesn't make any sense for him to, have been starved to death like that. That makes no sense when he had food just feet away.
Yeah, the whole thing is full of really weird, quirky sort of mysteries. Like there's mysteries within the mystery. Where it's like, okay, this happened, but then why did this happen?
Yeah,
like,
and I think
like
that's,
there's all these pieces, and you can't quite put them together.
I think that's one of the things, like with my channel and things like the Outlook Pass and the Yuba County 5, is that once you get an answer, it only leads to 10 more questions.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you almost never get any answers, and the answers in this business or field or whatever, they're all usually very unsatisfying. I think I've talked about this on the show before. Like these cold cases where they solve the mystery and they like arrest someone, and like the California Night Stalker or whatever, Golden State Killer or whatever, with the guy they caught like 5 or 6 years ago. It was like, it was, it was great they caught him, but it was like a huge letdown because he didn't provide any answers as to like what he just pled guilty and went to jail. And it's like, well, what was the deal with this thing or that thing? And like, we still don't ever know. So it's like, it's hard to, it really does a number in these communities when the case gets solved, because they kind of like have OCD about it. And they're like, well, what are we going to do now?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll talk about the lead mask case, because I don't think I've heard of this one.
No.
So you threw a curveball on me on that one. So what is the lead mask case that you covered?
That's another unsolved mystery. Because I'm a sucker for unsolved mysteries. I love it. Like we were just saying, I love it and hate it, because you do have all these questions that we probably will never get answers to. But basically, the lead mask case is out of Brazil. And it was back in the 50s. There was these two guys. They were radio technicians, and they just behaved really weird, sort of like leading up to it. They were also involved in the spiritualist movement. And the day of this event, they were acting bizarre. Like they were like they were like in a rush. They were anxious. They had to get these things. They had like a list of stuff. They were behaving really strange. And they were found dead on top of this hilltop wearing these lead masks on their eyes. They're dressed in raincoats and business suits. And then they had like paperwork with them with this code in it, and some quotes from a old book or whatever about like science fiction. And they had been involved in this thing a few months earlier. It came out that there was this big like explosion off the coast of Brazil, and it even got the Navy involved and officials involved because there was this huge explosion. People said that a UFO crashed into the water. It was a whole big deal. And these two guys were supposedly the reasons. I mean, they had this call sign. They were communicating with someone in the area. And I guess at this, like you have to, I didn't know this. When you have like a hand radio, you have to register it. And this was an unregistered call signal that was coming out. So they still don't know who these guys were communicating with. And they were just found dead on top of this hill. Cause of death unknown. Of course, the coroner at the time botched the autopsies. And by the time they went to exhume the bodies to try to do some kind of an official investigation, there was nothing they could do because, I mean, the bodies were so badly decomposed by the time the coroner even got around to it. And all of their organs had already been dipped in formaldehyde and you name it. So it was just the integrity of the investigation was so compromised from the start. They had even replaced one of the lead investigators on there midway through. So it really never got the attention that it should have. It definitely felt like they were trying to cover something up. And they had a friend who was kind of friends with these guys who some say maybe set him up to do this like suicide pact. Like maybe they ingested poison or something up there.
Yeah, I can see that.
Other people, because part of the paperwork that was in their pockets was this piece of paper, and it said something like 4 p.m. ingest the capsules, 6 p.m. put on the mask. So I don't know. But yeah, they made these lead masks themselves. They found the piece of lead that they used to cut it out in one of the gentleman's garage. And it was really strange. And they lied about where they were going that day. They told their family they were going like somewhere else, and they wanted to go in like 300 miles in the opposite direction. It was very strange. But at the same time, they had stopped at a bar in the town and they had gotten the mineral water. And I guess what they did is they requested a receipt, because if you brought it back with a receipt, you got a refund. So it's like if you were planning on killing yourself or you thought you were going to die, why get the receipt? And like they didn't pack any clothes, like they were going to be staying overnight. So it was weird. It was like, I don't think that they anticipated that they were going to die. And then there's another strange anomaly with the cases. When you map out their steps, like leading up to their death, there was a Jeep that was seen dropping them off on this hill. Like witnesses saw them drive up with, I think, a blonde-haired guy, which is rare, I think, for Brazil. And this back in that days, as they were like that really stood out. Is there was like a blonde gentleman and I guess maybe a couple other passengers in the Jeep. So yeah, there's some like unaccounted for time in their timeline in the afternoon.
That's wild. What year was this?
Oh gosh, I want to say 1952.
Oh, actually,
I think it was. Weird. I think it was in the 50s.
So long ago. This wasn't like in the 80s or something.
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, 80s is long ago now. So.
Okay, August 1966.
There you go. Okay, August 1966. Interesting. Yeah, that's a weird one. I didn't even think about the suicide idea until you mentioned the capsule and the theory there, and then I was like, oh, that's probably but still weird. It's like very Heaven's Gate kind of.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And it seemed like they'd been involved with some experiments. They were also spiritualists, and they had been involved with the spiritualist church. I guess that movement was also kicking off in Brazil at the time. And I think that's one thing, like with my show, that I don't, if you're paying attention, I'm trying to point out things, like, okay, with Casadega, he created the spiritualist camp. Now here we have these guys, spiritualists, or like different disappearances or things. So I think I try to put in these little Easter eggs for people who are like, huh, that's interesting. Like follow the thread here
see
of
what
like
you're saying.
the crazy vision board. And it's like, it's all connected. Because it's interesting because it's like, okay, here's another example of people, it's just interesting how these different stories start to develop these themes or calling cards.
Yeah. It is odd and interesting. Yeah. The lead mask case. I had never I'd never heard of that.
It's a cool one.
Are there any other? Now you seem you're obviously focused on Bigfoot, but are there other cryptids that you find particularly compelling?
Love Dogman. Super into that. I know some folks who have had some experiences with it. I have not. Don't think I maybe would want to, just because from what I've heard, they're all pretty much negative and kind of more on the malevolent side of things. But I love hearing about Dogman stories. That's fun. I don't know if you would consider crawlers cryptids, but I do look into those. I've been following some activity here in Florida, and especially in a specific area up in the Panhandle seems to be quite a hot spot for this. But yeah, Bigfoot is.
These are like the little
skinwalkers,
like the Dover demon kind of thing.
No.
Oh, so what are crawlers then?
Okay, have you ever heard like a rake?
Yeah.
More in that vein.
You mean like what Nate Brislin writes about?
Right.
Yeah. It is kind of like the Dover demon, though. That's what.
Oh, okay.
All right. So there's what been some sightings of these crawlers up there?
Oh yeah. There's been several in this specific area in the Panhandle, and I think it's really interesting. I don't know why. I personally believe I think that there's some portal activity happening up there, because I do think that there's a correlation between these crawlers and portals. And I met a lady and she said that the DOD has been out to her property and that there are 3 portals on her property out there. They've seen. Yeah, it's actually really cool.
Have you been out to her property to see these portals?
I have been out to the property. I have.
Okay. So what happened? Did you see any portals?
Well, we had the sensitive in the group and she didn't want to tell us specifically where they were at. Because she wanted to see, if any of us could sense it or feel it.
That makes sense.
They had they had a lot of acreage, so we didn't even get to cover it, but we kind of got to cover what was there. So we got on this one trail, that was by their house. It's an elderly couple. And we were in the group and this one lady was like, the portal's right back there. And I was like, where is it? Because I'm not as sensitive. I've got really good intuition and I've got a great killer vibe and I can read people like a book, but I'm not like, oh, this is
I know what you mean.
But I have been in places where I can feel it, but I'm just not energetically, sensitive to that degree. But this lady's like, nope, right. I'm telling you, the portal's right over there. So I was like, okay. So I'm like taking pictures with my phone. I'm like, right up here? All right, cool. She's like, oh, yeah. I'm getting a vibe. So I was like, okay. And so we go on about the hike and, we're checking out kind of the property. And I'm like, yeah, this is kind of a weird place. And we get back up to the house and the lady goes, is it down like right before you get to the bend by the creek and da-da-da? And is this where one of them is? And she's like, yep, that's where one of them is, right there where you guys were. That's where we had this. But yeah, I really came away from that. I mean, oh my God, that couple, they've had some serious stuff there happen. And they have this like sugar shack and they said, you can come and stay out here if you want. But I mean, they've had people chased off their property. I mean, this lady's experienced missing time because of that. She's had like the Men in Black type of stuff go on.
What comes out of these portals?
From what I understand, the Bigfoot, Dogman, they've seen dire wolves, rake.
Yeah, just all kinds of a menagerie of creatures and characters.
Yeah, and I asked her about if they've ever gotten the ground tested there. And I was with a group of people, and I said, "Have you ever had anything tested here? Do you guys know if you have any like quartz deposits? And everyone turned their head down and looked at me and was like, great question. I was like, I know. And sure enough, she is like, oh, you're like one of the first people to ever ask me that. She's like, actually, yeah, like we have had it tested and we're sitting on a ton of quartz. And then she went into all the other minerals and everything. And I forget what she said it, but basically where their property is kind of where it's here in Florida, but it's where like the Appalachians start. Right.
Yeah.
And we all know that the Appalachians are super weird and shrouded in strange energy. They're the oldest mountain range in the world. And so it doesn't surprise me that they're having the activity that they're having on their property. And after hearing her stories and hearing what her and her husband have experienced there, I think it's completely legit.
Ask her next time you talk to her if she ever sees little Ewok-like creatures, aggressive kind of Ewok creatures. Because
I will.
We've done the portal. We had a guy, Adam Davies, legendary episode. I'll send it to you. It'll blow your mind.
Oh, awesome!
He went on a Bigfoot hunt, and then him and his buddy, a portal opened, and these creatures came out. So
I've heard of it. You know what I think that reminds me of is the Hopkinsville goblins.
Yeah. That's a very it's an interesting case too.
They were attacked by these little, Ewok, little demon men, goblin men, and it's like, that's really interesting. Who seemingly came out of nowhere. Well, they said that they had seen, I think, a ship or something land, but who knows? Maybe it could have been a portal. Yeah, and they just didn't have the vernacular to describe that. They just see this big light and think, oh, that must be a ship.
That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. It could have been a portal opening up. Well, it's very interesting. Yeah, I'm when you get into portals, it sounds crazy, like crazy talk, but it's like, I don't know. Once you know people who've seen these portals or whatever, it's like hard to be like, it's. And I don't know if I would tell my doctor about it, but it's
right.
Like, yeah, man, I think portals might be real. So,
well, and the earth has energy, and that's undeniable. And especially in the quartz and granite and limestone, they're all conductors of energy. And I think you get enough of that stuff in one place, you get the right location with these ley lines, and just the right amount of weird. And I think anything's possible. I mean, it's been documented, and I think that our government for sure is aware of it. But yeah, no, I think there's portals.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I'm sure maybe some nerdy person out there would know this, but it's like, how would we even come up with portals as an idea if they didn't exist? Like, I don't know.
Right.
So, well, it's interesting. You actually just pinged something in my mind, because I remember seeing you speaking in the panel. You put a clip up from when you were at the Great Florida Bigfoot Conference, and you were very sort of pro conspiracy, if you will, of a government cover up of Bigfoot. You think that, like, essentially, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you made the point sort of that, like, you just don't think the government wants people to know about it, essentially.
Right.
It would be too empowering. But I guess talk about that. Do you think the government's covering up the existence of Bigfoot?
I do, 100%, along with many other things. I believe that the government absolutely is covering it up. I think what's really intriguing is when people do look into the things like Roswell and how Eisenhower supposedly cut a deal with the aliens at the time that, okay, you can abduct a certain amount of people every year. And then we look at the technological advances in our society since that point and how we really went. And there was just this major boom to where we're at today with AI and electric cars and everybody running around with an iPhone and everything's connected. Like my toothbrush has Bluetooth. So it's insane. This boom that we had, and they, supposedly recovered bodies from the Roswell crash that we'll never in our lifetime we'll never see. I mean, in that clip you're talking about, I mean, we just found out, like, okay, JFK was nothing that anybody for the last, 50 years was taught that it was in school, that, hey, there were two shooters. This is confirmed. All your conspiracy friends were right. It wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. And I think with Bigfoot, I do believe that they're covering it up, because that's the question I think I get asked a lot too, is like, what is it going to take for the scientific community to recognize Bigfoot? Is it going to take a body? And that's why I say, well, I feel like they already have a body. I personally do. I don't think that we're the only ones that are out there looking for this thing. I think that they have a finger on the pulse of what's going on within our community. I think that they know what's going on. I think that they pay attention to places that we go where we're having encounters. Far too often, I do hear about the stories of someone will have someone, and when I say someone who is not a researcher, just maybe a hunter or a family out hiking, someone with their dog, a mushroom scavenger, just an average day person enjoying nature, who is out and will have a sighting of Bigfoot, and it shakes them to their core. And their first instinct is to contact FWC or local law enforcement and share what they've seen. And next thing you know, it's being covered up and a controlled burn is happening in that area. And I just think the timing of it is really interesting. And I mean, there's certain national parks, you can't walk around in certain areas. I just had a conversation about the Grand Canyon and how that's now been privatized to where you can only go in certain spots because certain things have been discovered out there, like hieroglyphs and different giant skeletons out in the caves out there. So I think good and well that the Smithsonian has a body. They have the bones. If you go through the newspaper archives from the 1800s, you can find story after story after story where these giant skeletons were found here in North America, and they have been covered up. It's a part of history that our government would like us to ignore.
Interesting. All right. Wow. Okay. So I don't know where to even go with that, because I'm just I'm really intrigued. So you just like a widespread, you just believe the government knows the answers to most of the stuff we've been talking about for all these years, and they just kind of don't want it out for various reasons.
I think it's yeah. The shortest answer. Well, I think that our government is infiltrated at the highest levels with, let's just say, people who might not even be people, but a nefarious, could be, a demonic Nephilim spirit. We're talking about like gods of old still controlling the masses now. And I think that there is this level of suppression and control. I mean, if you look around today and say that, we're not being controlled, I don't see how anybody can say that, and I think that there is a huge reason, that they want to keep this from coming out. I think that they would prefer us to believe that we're just rotating aimlessly around space with no purpose or no matter, and that we were just created in a bang and we're all going to disappear in a bang. I don't think that they want the general person to realize the power that each of us hold, because you ever seen the picture and it's of all the people with like the chess game on their backs, and it's like they will lose if we all stand up. Things only work if we're going along with it. So I think that we're, from a young age, people are indoctrinated into the mold. And I think once you open up the door to Bigfoot being real, Bigfoot's like the gateway drug. It really is. Because once you can accept Bigfoot, then it brings in all these other things into question. And I think that a lot of our history has been hidden. I mean, even what's coming out now with the pyramids, and them finding those ginormous structures underneath of it that were supposedly built with just stones and hammers. I think there's a lot of our history that's been hidden. And so them hiding Bigfoot is nothing new. They've hidden so much from us, and they continue to do so to this day.
Yeah, Bigfoot's small potatoes compared to all the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
So this is fascinating. So what's your take then? How do you fold in the UFO phenomenon into your worldview then? What's your take on that?
Ooh, I love the UFOs. I definitely, I've seen a UFO. I guess I should start there. I had a UFO sighting back in 2014 in South Carolina on Edisto Beach in the middle of November. I was out there with some friends. We were going to go down and just hang out on the beach one night. And it was off season, so nobody's at this beach. It's not popular like, say, Clearwater Beach would be here. And we were just going to go down there and hang out. And we just arrived and gotten down there. And all of a sudden we start observing these orbs over the water. And it was really crazy because you could see the stars, and these were so much bigger and closer than the stars. And this was really before like drones like are to the way that they are today. And I know that's like hard for people to wrap their head around, but like 11 years ago, it wasn't like what it is today. And there were these giant amber lights, and they were in a row, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then they would disappear one by one, and then they would reappear in like a triangular shape. Oh, wow. And then they would go away, and they were forming these like intelligent shapes, like quickly. And it was really freaky. And we saw it and we were like, we need to get out of here. This is nuts. So we left, and we got the hell out of there. I was like, I'm not trying to be abducted today. It's not on my list of things to do. And it wasn't until I was watching an unsolved mystery special, and I saw the Phoenix lights, and I was like, oh my gosh. And it was like, that is what I saw. That was literally what we saw on the beach in Edisto in 2014. If I had to direct people to see like a visual of what it looks like, look up the Phoenix lights, and that is literally what we saw, and similarly to how what we observed, how it behaved. So I have seen a UFO, and that was crazy. It's like one of those things that you see that you really can't explain again, which makes you kind of question everything, because you're like, I've just seen something that is unexplainable. And yeah, so I'm definitely into that. I don't go looking for it, but I really want to do like a sky watch sometime. I know that people do those where they just kind of sit back and look up at the sky. So I'd love to actually like do an official one of those. I'd love to talk to. I actually have a couple folks I'm trying to get on the show who have had some like abduction stories themselves. I really love the idea that instead of air quotes aliens coming from outer space somewhere millions of miles away on Mars, that they're actually could be coming from here. So from like the oceans, say. Right. And it's that I find really interesting. I really love that, because I just don't think, I mean, again, if I could be proven wrong, that's fine. I keep a very open mind with this type of stuff. I personally don't think that they're coming from millions and millions and millions of miles away, and they're like, "Ooh, let's just go see what Brooke's doing on this beach in South Carolina." I think it's I don't know. I think they could be here.
Yeah, well, it's certainly more plausible that they would be here because of gravity and all the factors, necessary to exist and even visit another planet. It's like if they, like we went up, we can't just go up on Mars and like walk around without any like suits and shit. So it's like clearly they seem a little too adept at traveling around on Earth. Yeah. So it's possible. Yeah, it's entirely possible. Do you, you're not as cynical as I am after all these years being in the business. So what's your take about this, how everyone's talking about UFOs and stuff, and the government's talking about UFOs? Do you have an opinion on that?
All the disclosure coming out is really interesting. I think timing is everything. I think, again, they're not releasing anything without an agenda. And I think it could be a way of, I think it could be a two-prong event. I think it could be a way of like, here, we're going to give you this, so you're looking here while we're doing something over here. Any good magician has you distracted while they're doing their trick. And I think that the people who run our government are the highest levels of chaos, magic, and magicians, I think. So that's for one. So I think that's happening. And two, I think it could be a little bit of that Project Bluebeam, because I believe it was either, it might have been George Bush or Ronald Reagan. I can't remember right now which one of them said it, but they spoke at a UN UN speech at a summit, and they said nothing is going to bring the world together in that one world government quite like an alien invasion. And so that goes into the one world government and what comes with that whole new world order type of thing. So I think if they can get people drummed up and get the masses freaked out about aliens, we're handing over more of our rights, more control to this unknown force, relying more on our government to help us.
Right.
And just, I think, creating a lot of fear. I think, these people thrive off of our fear because, and when you're fearful, your vibration is lowered and you're more susceptible to things. Whereas if you're not scared and you're not, falling into the rage bait and the fear porn, you have a higher vibration. And I think we just have to be really careful of what we're seeing and question everything. I would question everything and do your own research. Don't take anything at face value.
Well, that's for sure. Certainly, if the government's saying it, and if they're saying it's aliens, then definitely, yeah, take it with a grain of salt. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's been a weird show to watch so far. So you're going on a cruise. Tell me about this cruise you're going to be going on, the 2025 Caribbean Bigfoot cruise. Not really something I know they've done this before, and it was like the last place you'd find Bigfoot is on a cruise, right? So it's kind of like a funny juxtaposition in a way, because it's like we're going to go out. It's not like you're looking for lake monsters or anything. So, but
we will be going through the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, nice! That's always fun. So what's going on with this thing? How'd you get mixed up with this?
So the folks at Gather Up event, Nikki and Marty, I know I was on the Skunk Ape Roundtable for the Great Florida Bigfoot Conference, and, they had chatted with me afterwards, and, we talked about my interest, and I said, absolutely, sign me up. Let's do this. It's going to be incredible. It's a 7-day cruise that leaves out of Miami and goes, I think, to St. Thomas, the Bahamas. I'm sure some other places I'm not thinking about, but there's going to be the best names in the business. You have Dave Politis, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and Dr. Mira Mayer. They're going to be speaking on there and giving some lectures and some deep dives into Bigfoot. So that will be exciting. And there's going to be, I think there's like 200 rooms available for other Bigfoot enthusiasts to come out. So I think, honestly, it's just a way for people to connect, to learn a little more. I mean, truly, I loved listening to Dave Politis and Dr. Jeff Meldrum and Mira Mayer's presentations. I've listened to Politis twice, and each time I walked away with something different. It wasn't the same presentation. I mean, he gives a killer presentation, as well as Dr. Meldrum. I mean, it was awesome. I really can't.
What are you going to be doing on the cruise, though? You giving a presentation?
Hanging out, getting a tan. So,
all right.
Meeting the people, hanging out, I'm there, just to hang out and mingle with all the other believers, listen, answer any questions, hear your stories, just have a good time. I'm excited.
There you go. All right. So was the Great Florida Bigfoot Conference, that was your first time at one of these events?
Well, I had attended in the past as a guest.
Okay, yeah.
But this was my first time actually like doing any form of like speaking or presenting.
Yeah. What was that experience like for you?
It was great. I loved every minute of it. I think that the best part was just being able to connect with people in the audience. Like it's like I get the numbers, I see the analytics, and I know how many people are listening and stuff. But when you actually just have somebody come up and they're like, I really love your show, or like, it's just really humbling, and it's really cool, really getting to meet people who love your work, love what you do, and help support you a little bit behind the scenes by maybe donating or leaving a good review or writing a kind comment. So just really getting to meet the folks and the supporters was just honestly the best part for me.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. People always have stories. It's, you hear a lot of stories over the years if you go to enough of these events.
Well, and getting to find people, I think that like resonate with your vibe because everybody's different, and in the Bigfoot world, everybody kind of it is a spectrum, and you have just different folks who believe different things. So getting to find kind of like your niche and my little corner of weird with all the awesome people and stuff, I think that was really cool. It's just wow, like there's this audience of people who resonate with what I'm doing, and I just thought that was honestly it was so cool.
Yeah. Now, you earlier kind of suggested that it seemed that way that we shouldn't kill Bigfoot. But do you think I go back and forth on it. So it's kind of like, look, I want this mystery solved, but to that end, do you think this could be solved in our lifetime or in the not too distant future? Do you think someone will? Because I mean, there are people looking for Bigfoot. Although I'm going to look for Bigfoot later this year. So there's people going looking for Bigfoot all the time. I won't have any weaponry, so I will not be. More likely, Bigfoot's going to kill me. But that's a different altogether. But what's your take on this? Can this be solved, or is this sort of like if it is supernatural, it's going to be even harder to do? But right. In general, you think we'll ever get an answer to the Bigfoot mystery in our life?
I think we might. I think maybe we could. I really think so. It's gone so mainstream. I mean, you can go into Walmart and find, like, I was in the card section recently looking for a birthday card for someone, and there were so many Bigfoot cards. It's on the Jack Links thing now. It's in so many different commercials. I think it's now getting into like the public zeitgeist that maybe like similarly with alien disclosure. I mean, California, for example, and this was interesting. It was Bill 666. Go figure, right? The mark of the beast. They put in this fake filler bill that they thought was going to get thrown out to recognize Bigfoot as California's first official state cryptid. Okay, so you have lawmakers who, quote unquote, are doing these junk bills, but it's becoming more real. And even in Tennessee, from what I'm told, this is some insider info, is that there is a congressman out of Tennessee who is teaming up with Dave Paulides, and it has been called to DC because there is going to be a disclosure on Bigfoot, supposedly. So This has to be Tim Burchett. It's got to be Congressman Tim Burchett. I don't know if he told you the name, but I'd be willing to bet dollars to donuts it's Congressman Tim. He's a big UFO buff. So, and he has done Bigfoot stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's him. Interesting. Yeah, so I think that possibly we could. Just with the amount of attention it does seem to be receiving from more official standpoints. I mean, and if you look in, what is it? The South Florida Fish and Wildlife Management guidebooks, if you look up their hunting laws, and this tells you all the laws that you need to abide by when you're in these WMAs, these wildlife management areas. One of the laws literally says, you cannot kill the skunk ape. So it's like, how much of this is a joke and is just set out of jest? So it seems like, why are they putting that in hunting laws? Why are they coming up with these fake bills? I think it's possible. I think it is. I mean, we turn on your TV. I think during the Super Bowl, I saw at least like 3 Sasquatch related commercials. So it's in the mainstream now.
Yeah, definitely. Bigfoot is a pop culture icon for sure now. It's crazy. I cover it all the time at Coast to Coast. They name all kinds of shit after him, or her, or it. So yeah, interesting. Well, I'd like to see a solution to the mystery in our lifetime. I think I've talked about this with regards to sort of like the big cats, which are a little more plausible to some people than Bigfoot, but still a lot of these local state wildlife places, they don't want to admit there's like big cats roaming around because they don't want to have to like deal with all the extra, like now we got to have preservation lands and stuff. So part of it, I could see if they were covering up Bigfoot's existence, that they would be like, look, we just don't want to deal with having to protect this thing. And now everyone's going to try and go get it. So it's going to make it worse. So if we just don't acknowledge that the Bigfoot's out there, it's actually safer for the Bigfoot, I guess. Maybe the thinking on some point.
Yeah, I've heard that thought before too.
Yeah. But who knows? It's like, again, it's one of those weird things. Like, and I hate to sound like one of those skeptics, but you do hear it all the time. Like, how come no one's ever hit it with a car or whatever? It's like, yeah, it's really kind of conveniently weird that they never that this thing's still out there. But we always hold out hope, right? Because we want to bag Bigfoot.
Absolutely.
Or at least prove it. Do you think they have to kill it? Like, what do you think would even convince that? Yeah, to circle back to the killing part, like nowadays with AI and shit, you can't trust any like video or photo evidence. Like, you would need.
I know that is really tough.
I don't know how you would really. You would need an esteemed with all due respect, like a non-Bigfooter. You would need I don't know, some Harvard guy or whatever,
Right.
like a naturalist or someone like that who can vouch for the Bigfoot and somehow
someone
has
who's
some kind of
non-biased.
proof. Yeah. But otherwise, I don't see how you could do it without having a body. So I don't know.
Yeah, unless they came out with like a disclosure saying, hey, back in the 60s, somebody hit it with his car and we've had this body.
True. Yeah.
And now it's been 50 years and we're going to release this information and tell you, yes, this is happening.
I would lose my mind if they had Bigfoot disclosure. So I'm all for it. If this actually happens, I
think it could be possible. Honestly, I think we could see that in our lifetime. I do. I mean, who would have thought that we would have had even the fact we have a Congress committee for UAPs? Like, that's just, we would have never thought of that 20 years ago. So the fact that we're actually seeing that's interesting.
Now, I noticed, because I was wondering, I was like, well, did Brooke grow up in Florida? Like, why dark Florida? But then I saw you're actually from Maryland originally. So do you have any interest in sort of the weird stuff around there? Did that interest you before you came to Florida? Or was it just like you fell in love with Florida and you were like, forget you, Maryland?
Yeah, I am from Maryland. Like, ever since I was a kid, I was always really interested in stuff. Like, I've done remember doing a book report on D.B. Cooper, and it wound up winning the social studies fair. Yeah, because I did it on all the theories. So I've always kind of been like this like little conspiracy theorist in the making. I was always really into that growing up. And then as an adult, I moved to Florida and I've been here for a while. And it's just like, I really feel like it's my home now. And when I was going back and forth with kind of what to do upon creating the podcast, I think one of the things that was holding me back was like, I have to have the perfect name. You have to have a name that's marketable, that is good, that people will like. It's not a mouthful. What can I do? And so I was thinking, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to call it Dark Florida and just do it. Yeah. And I'm like, if I want to rebrand down the road, I can do that. But I was like, I want to create, I need to create, and I just need to get this off the, I need to just like stop. Because here's the thing. I was like, I'm a perfectionist. So it's like, I have to have this like perfect thing. And it was like, no, actually something imperfect is okay. And it will never get better if you don't start. So quit going back and forth over these like minute details and just create. And so that's what I did. And so that's why I called it Dark Florida. And we cover everything from the Sunshine State and beyond.
Yeah, exactly. So folks listening aren't confused. This is not just Florida. It's all like we talked about Dyatlov Pass and the lead mask case. These are international cases. Now, are there any particular other mysteries you haven't gotten to yet that really intrigue you? Favorite mysteries? Like you said, D.B. Cooper's a great story. We've done it a few times here on the show.
That is such a good one.
Classic.
Yeah, I'm going to be getting into some potential time traveling stuff here soon.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going to be probably releasing that episode within the next week. Got some weird stories of just like people showing up and claiming that they're, from the 50s, and they're pretty notable cases, and then also disappearing. So I think that's really interesting. I have that coming down the line. I mean, there are so many things I can't wait to sink my teeth into. And I feel like just when you think you've heard every weird story, some strange case lands in my lap, and I'm like, okay. So I don't think for me, I'll ever be done or satisfied. The world is not short on stories, and there's strange things happening every day. And I keep finding out more and more odd things. So,
for sure.
I'm definitely, but after having that Class A sighting and kind of sharing it with some other people who have had similar experiences. I'm definitely hyped up and more passionate than ever for getting out there and doing field work. I've got some expeditions coming up. I'm going to be up in Tennessee in June doing some research up there and collaborating with some Eastern Tennessee researchers. So I'm really excited. I've got some other trips planned this year. So I think I'm excited to get out and do some field work and hopefully help us, solve this mystery.
There
or at
you
least
go,
get some more information on it.
Okay, so I'm going to be in the woods here Halloween night and then November 1st. So it's going to be extra spooky. I'll send you the information. You should join us if you get a chance. If you want to get in on the some kind of people run it. I don't know. I'm a barnacle on this crazy Bigfoot trip. So what do you recommend? What do I need? I think it's gonna be primitive camping. Like, I don't think there's gonna be any. I think I'm gonna be out in the middle of fucking nowhere. So what do you think I need? A lot of like long johns because it's gonna be cold. That sounds awful.
I would do that. And what's funny is the hot hands. They're like literally you can buy them from like $1 at Walmart. They're fantastic. Yeah. But get a couple because I have run into a couple of packs that are duds and don't work correctly. But basically, as soon as you open them and they hit air, they'll emit heat for like 12 hours. And you can stuff them like in your pants or in your pockets.
All right.
They've even got pretty large ones. So I would do that. I would come and just prepare that you might encounter something weird. I would just come with like an open mind and know that you might experience something super weird out there, especially you said you're going in the northern Georgia area. That's not far from, I'm going to be just over the Georgia line in Tennessee. So it's really, really close. And there's some interesting stuff up there. I would just be ready. You might get yourself a Class A.
Who knows? That would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, believe me, if I saw Bigfoot, it would be a life-changing experience. So, yeah. Well, I think also it might happen, like you were saying when you had your experience. It was like it's like those puzzles, like at the dentist's office, that like you have to blur your eyes to see. It's like I think it was like I think for you and maybe for a lot of people, it's like you're not looking for Bigfoot. You're something else is. Your mind is occupied by something else, and that's when it happens. So it's like I'm going to have to try. I'm going to try to get my headspace into that blurry state.
Yeah. Well, and I think
do that.
Yeah, I think they're curious creatures. So what I would recommend is wherever you're going, if you could scout an area in the day, if you guys are planning on doing some nighttime investigations, scout where you're going during the daytime. Find a good spot where something could come up and view you and not feel threatened. And so, and I would find a spot, maybe post up and create a little fire and just hang out and do, if you do some provocations, but just hang out. And you're in an area away from the camp. You have your base camp. And now you've set up in an area that you've scouted that is promising. Something can come up and view you, not feel threatened. And you're out there, you're not by camp. So I think that they are very curious creatures and you're breaking the norm. I mean, they expect to see humans in camp. That's kind of a given. But when you're out in areas where they don't anticipate you to be, I think that's, when you have that probability go up. And I think that they're very curious. So that would be my,
And what do you mean by provocations, like wood knocks and that kind of thing, and sounds?
Yeah, howl, wood knocks, maybe some music, nothing aggressive. We did a scouting trip one night, and this girl was like, "Yeah, I downloaded some Native American music. I'm gonna play it." And we're like, "Oh, okay, cool." And it was like this really pretty flute and some like light drumming, and it was like, "Oh, that was great." Yeah. Next thing you know, I guess like the third track on there, it's like Cherokee war calls, and they're just like going off, and we're like, oh my god, I'm gonna turn that off because we're not trying to come across as aggressive or anything like that. And especially in this area, where some tribes had been before, we were like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So don't go out there playing anything crazy.
Well, it's funny you say that. Yeah. Cause I was just thinking, like, I'm going with a couple of my buddies. Josh Cutchin, as I mentioned earlier, wrote the book with Tim Renner, Where the Footprints At. And Steve Berg of High Strangeness. We're going to be going out there in the woods. And Yeah, I was just thinking, I'm like, they would probably shit their pants if I like just busted open a fucking Ouija board and was like, let's get the fucking Ouija board going here in the woods, dude. We'll try and communicate with Bigfoot that way. They'd probably be like, they'd probably run in fear, but who knows?
Hey,
Now they might. Now
rods.
there you go. Yeah, interesting. Now, before I let you go, I want to mention one last thing. I saw you're a wrestling fan. You call it wrestling. Wrestling like me. So how long have you been a wrestling fan?
I'm actually a pretty new fan. I think I've been watching it for about a year.
Oh, really? How'd you get into it?
I saw on Peacock and I was like, what is this? And WrestleMania was on last year and I happened to click on it and all I see is Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair, and Naomi coming out. And I'm like, what is going on here? And look it up, last year, 2024's WrestleMania, Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair entrance. And it was just so cool. I mean, Jade is jacked. Bianca's jacked. I was like, what is this? And then next thing you know, they go in the ring and they just beat the hell out of these girls. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like, what is this? And so then I just kind of got into it. I love the storyline, the theatrics. I love the athleticism. I'm hooked on. I just, before we got on the call, I was catching up on Monday Night Raw.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I don't really everybody I know like got hooked as a kid and never got off.
I have an adult converter.
Yeah,
they got me.
That's wild. Well, it is. I don't watch WWE much these days. I watch AEW, but the pageantry is fantastic. With all that stuff, it's great.
Love it.
So silly and weird. So you're going to be involved with this cruise, 2025 Caribbean Bigfoot cruise, and also Dark Florida is the podcast. Anything else coming up you want to mention? Plug?
Just that. Yeah. If you do want to go on the cruise and you use the code Dark Florida at checkout coupon area, you will get $100 of free merch. So that's super exciting. So if you're going to come, you might as well use the code and get some free stuff. Really just that. And, you can listen to Dark Florida wherever you get your podcast. Going to have some pretty cool guests coming up. Like I said, maybe some alien abductees. I'm going to be doing some time travel stuff here soon. And then just documenting all of my adventures that I have coming down the pike, which should be fun. I'm going to be, like I said, collaborating with some researchers here soon in Tennessee, and I'm really looking forward to that trip. I cannot wait. And that's going to be about a month from today. So I'm excited.
Without getting too specific, whereabouts in Tennessee is it?
Tennessee,
like Eastern, Western,
East Tennessee, not far or over the Georgia line.
All right. So okay. All right. Interesting. Yeah, that whole area is crazy. It's
it is.
It's a wild realm. I'm going down to Kentucky in September, so I'm actually going to the Goblin Town. So
fun.
So I'll see. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. All right. Well, as I said, Dark Florida is the podcast. Brooke is all over social media. Just punch in Dark Florida Podcast. It's on Instagram also, and YouTube is where you can hear it, and also you can hear it on wherever you get podcasts. So however you're listening to this, I'm sure it's on the same service. So they're all everywhere these days. With all that said, it's been great chatting with you, Brooke. I wish you the best of luck. Keep us posted. I'll be following along. Keep us posted on these expeditions and the cool stuff you find. And I'll let you know if I stumble upon Sasquatch later on this year myself. So
that sounds like a plan.
It'll be fun.
All right. Please do. And thank you for having me.